Hello, welcome, All for United WFC just here, and we are pleased, delighted, wonderful to have you back. In fact, if tonight was a show, it would be guess who's back? Back again. Barry's back. Don't switch off. It's generally what we're going for because I'm not going to be doing much of the talking today. We've got two rather fabulous people here to do all the talking, and I'm just here to make sure they don't knock each other out. That's basically how we're working today. Not going to happen, of course, because they're both lovely people. And we'll start off with the lovely Cerys, just here to my left. How are you, mate? Been a long time since we've seen you. How's your summer been?
It's been very good. It was very busy over the Euros and then pretty much just twiddling my thumbs until the Premier League started again. And then it's been a lot of football and a lot of sitting around. And now I'm finally back in Sheffield and the season is finally starting back up. We get to see some proper football finally. So I'm very excited. How are you, Barry?
I'm loving life. As I said to everybody just before, I love the fact we didn't coordinate this. We've all gone dark. Look, it's the start of a brand new WSL season.
It has gone a bit funeral.
On funeral vibes. Absolutely. That's it. It's all over. So we'll see where we end up there. But yes, lovely to have you, Cerys. And of course, just below me here, we have Allie, who I know has contributed to the likes of Since 71, is also part of that WOSO show. How are you, Allie? Lovely to have you here on the show tonight.
I am very well, getting ready for the new season, as well as a West Ham fan can, which is normally a mixture of dread and fear, as well as excitement.
Fully understandable. Cerys just decided to drop out, and then she obviously didn't
I
like
don't
being
know what happened there, but I'm back.
Yeah, no, she's like, West Ham fan? Nah.
Outrageous. But there we go. Not a problem. You're all fine. Everybody's here. It's not a drama. We'll crack on. We've got a few people in the chat. We'll say hello. Just a few of those because, for example, High Lane here saying, like the new thumbnail style. Do you know what? So do we. James has absolutely outdone himself with our thumbnails for this season. We've got lots of new types of graphics coming throughout the course of this season. So keep your eyes on everything we do. Not everything, because, it's a little bit weird, but everything that we do on the social media. So there we are. Connor's in Sandback Sandwiches. That'd be a new place, wouldn't it? Sandback Services. Having a sandwich, probably, because there's no burgers. As you can see, he's left me to it. But that's going to be fine, because what can possibly go wrong when Barry's in charge of a WFC show? What indeed? But we're going to try our best to take you through to Saturday, and we're all excited, looking forward to it. It's going to be absolutely mad. But Cerys, I'm going to kick off with possibly a bit of a weird and maybe a bit of a downer sort of start to the show, because you would think when you're talking about Manchester United first game of the season for the women, it's going to be at Old Trafford as well. It doesn't feel like it sold as many tickets as potentially would have liked the first game of the WSL season to go. Now, there's been a lot of advocacy for playing these matches at the big stadiums, and if you do it regularly, people will come. But this is almost a counter argument to that whole thing of people will come if you just play the matches there. Do you think it's more to do with the marketing and the fact that it hasn't been done well enough there? Or is it just that actually Leigh Sports Village is basically where we should be at the moment, because that is the level we could sell out more regularly? What say you, Cerys?
I think it's a tough one, because this is the sort of thing that, other people will always kind of throw back in your face as this is why, we can't be doing with that, having women's games at the men's stadiums. But I think there's a few important things to remember. First of all, no disrespect to West Ham, but it's not like it's a derby. It's not like it's a title challenge. It's usually this would not be the sort of fixture we would even expect to sell out at Leigh. So I'm not, in a way, it's less surprising. I'm pretty sure, say we had City this weekend. I mean, I'm really glad we don't. But if we had City as our season opener, I'm willing to bet we would have sold a lot more. So there's that for one thing. There's the fact the men are playing away at Palace in the evening as well. Probably takes a lot of the usual kind of Old Trafford crowd away. There's the fact that, I think the marketing does have a role to play. I think there's been quite a lot of I think we're past the point now where to women's football fans, you can just say, look, the women are playing at a big stadium, so you must go. I think we need to retarget the marketing to be more like, these are our new signings you can see at Old Trafford. We need quotes from the manager about, we want to play this sort of new style of football this season. We want to be better on the transition. We want to be more attacking. This is what you can expect to see, and this is why you should go and see us. Because I think we're at that point now where it's a bit patronising to say, you must go because it's in the big stadium. Like, I think women's football has moved past that point now, and we need to advertise it a bit better. But, you know, it's good to have the occasion at Old Trafford. And also, you know, there's a point to be made of, I know we all hate it when people call us like a young team or whatever, but we are still a young team. And Arsenal weren't selling out the Emirates for the first couple of times they played there. So I think marketing has a role to play. The fixture doesn't probably help. The date, it being on the same day as the men's, probably doesn't help. But it's not like an indictment on having the women's team playing games at Old Trafford, I don't think.
Seems perfectly reasonable to me, Kara. Some very well articulated points there, just as I would expect from you, Allie. No pressure. So over we go to you, because it's going to be a trip to Old Trafford. Now, I don't care who you are. I don't care what level of football you play. I don't care whether you play with the men or whether you play with the women. Going to Old Trafford is 100% something to tick off your bucket list. I know that because I've done it. Going to Old Trafford in a press format as well. If either of you doing that, I know Cerys is, but it is an amazing thing to do. For you as a West Ham fan, which would you prefer? Would you prefer to be having the game at Old Trafford, or would you prefer to be having the game at LSB? Which do you think is going to support you both as a fan, and which do you think would favour you more as a team?
So Old Trafford is the answer to both. Selfishly, because I don't drive, it is easier to get to, because Lee is not the easiest of places to get to on public transport. So Old Trafford in that style, but also I think Old Trafford as a team, because you guys are going to be more spread out, because I have seen us play you at Lee. I've been to Lee many times, and the fortress you guys make it is something else. Whereas if you're at Old Trafford, you guys are going to be a bit more spread apart. It's not going to be as intense. I mean, it's going to be overwhelming because Old Trafford is such a stadium, but for a West Ham fan, I feel like it's just going to be a bit easier at Old Trafford.
I think that's, again, very, very fair. Very, very fair indeed. Cerys, we played West Ham at Old Trafford before, haven't we? I'm sure we did that during the COVID years. Or was that Aston Villa? I love to get the pair of them.
I'm pretty sure we've
played you twice. No, we've played you twice at Old Trafford, once in the COVID years, and then once, I want to say it wasn't last season before, because I remember getting battered. West Ham got battered 4-0, which my friends thought was hilarious. So yeah, we've played you at Old Trafford twice.
There we go. And we've been successful both times. So that's a wonderful thing. Can we make it a hat trick? Let's hope it's not like the men the other day when none of them can make it a hat trick. Let's try that one. So yeah, that's good. It's going to be a good one. But let's move on to slightly more positive things with that one. Cerys, we're not going to see for West Ham Princess Ademiluyi, because she's gone on loan to Charlton. So there will be no princess, but there will be a queen. Queen Elizabeth III will be on her throne, we believe, on this particular occasion. And I have to start here purely because I don't know how much you've had the opportunity to talk about our new signings, but we've just done a show on Monday on this channel where it was so positive. The transfer window for Manchester United this season has been absolutely tip-top, I think. But what's your thoughts? Are you looking forward to the game because of all of these wonderful signings that seem to be coming in? Are you feeling confident going into this season?
Do you know, I literally have no idea how to feel going into this season, because if you'd asked me in sort of whatever week it was in June or July, when we had that, it was like boom, 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 Zellum gone, Garcia gone, who else left? Everyone leaving. Who else left? Earps, obviously. It was, if you'd asked me then, I was feeling very negative. But I have to give credit where credit's due. And I think the incomings over the summer have been really, really good. I think we've recruited really smartly in target positions. The only position that I think still concerns me slightly is that sort of holding midfield role that Katie Zellam's now vacated. But in terms of like Elizabeth Turland up top, I'm so excited to watch. She's a player that I have loved watching play for Brighton. She's just prolific as a goal scorer, such an amazing like physical presence on the pitch. She gives defenders such a run around. I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of how our defence lines up. I think having Dominique Janssen in there will be really interesting, like the experience she brings, again, the physicality. I don't know whether to expect to see Anna Sandberg starting or not, but even if we don't see Anna Sandberg starting, I'd expect to see Gabby George, who was a player I was so excited about last season. And I remember it was a game that I wasn't at, and I had a text from my dad saying, I think Gabby George has just done her ACL in front of me. And I was like, please no. And obviously we all know how that turned out. So I'm so excited for the sort of new faces to make debuts in a lot of cases at Old Trafford. I think is such a fantastic opportunity as well. Like we talk about it from a fan's perspective going to Old Trafford, but from a player's perspective, it's massive. So I'm very excited about our new signings. I don't know if excited is the right word. I'm interested to see kind of how we line up and how we play, because there's been, I started my morning this morning with Mark Skinner's press conference, and he was talking about kind of the increased physicality we want to see, better play in the transitions, which is, I mean, it sounds sort of, when any United fan hears transitions, they think about, I think, Eric Ten Hag and how we were going to become the best transitional team in the world. So it can be a bit of a trauma-inducing word, but it will make for an exciting game. And I think the quality that West Ham offer up top will make it really interesting to see how our defence stacks up to it as well. So I'm really looking forward to just seeing how we line up, seeing kind of how we want to go out and play this season. I think starting with intent will be really, really important. I think that what was the season opener last season? It was Villa. We beat Villa 2-1, and we played okay. We played, I would say, good, but not great. And I think that kind of set a tone. So I think we really need to set like a strong tone on Saturday is my main hope.
No, I think I agree with that. And Allie, we're going to come to you and your transfer window in just a second, but I've got to highlight this. Catherine saying, hi, everyone will be at the game on Saturday. So that's not me, so it's not saying hello to me, which is a little bit rude, but there we go. I'm coming up from Southampton, getting a 6 a.m. train. I'm not going to lie to you, on a Saturday, 6 a.m. should not exist. That is quite some commitment. So well done you for getting down there. Make sure you give the ladies a big cheer from me. Allie, interesting to talk about the West Ham transfer window, and it's going to be the same sort of question for you in terms of how you're feeling ahead of the game. Obviously, some very interesting ones. Mackenzie Arnold, I suppose, being the biggest name that left you over the course of the summer, but Kinga Sesmit coming in from Poland, Polish keeper there, could potentially be the one to replace her. Also, Manuela Pavey coming in, which is pretty good. And Lee Meng-Wen, deadline day loan from Brighton. If Sean's watching, he loves it when we mention Brighton on the show. So they've been weakened further. Unlucky, Sean. A few bits and pieces going on there. Also, Sissoko leaving you. Where do you sort of rank your transfer window? Because, again, Kerry's talking about the presser. Mark Skinner's very complimentary about Rianne Skinner, saying how she's building it piece by piece, bit by bit. Are you kind of feeling that? Are you feeling, I'm trying to be as nice as I possibly can, but you're feeling more confident than you were with, your 11th place finish of last season? It was at one point looking a little bit, dodgy. And it's weird because I read a preview thing beforehand, and the guy that was doing it was saying, West Ham will hopefully avoid relegation. But that shouldn't really be what we're talking about when it comes to West Ham, should it? So are you feeling confident that you could do more than that, more of a mid-table, maybe even a top of the table sort of charge, or is that way too much? Maybe not the top of the table, but the top four. Where do you sort of stand with all that?
Yeah, I think top 4 might be slightly above West Ham's pay grade at the moment. I don't want another relegation battle. My heart can't take another relegation battle. Last season was stressful, to say the least. In terms of transfer window, I actually think we've had a really good one. So one of the key pieces I wanted to do was keep Zadorsky, because we had on loan from Tottenham at the end of last season, and she really was shoring up our back line. So we managed to get that over the line, and she's now a permanent West Ham player. As you mentioned, Pavi, who anybody who watched the Olympics will know that there were 3 key Colombian players in that Olympic team, and Pavi was the third with Ramirez and Caicedo. So that is huge for us to get that across the line. And you talk about Man United's physicality. West Ham have always been a physical team. That's just like a West Ham staple, is you go in and worry about the card later. You know, we're missing that with Sissoko going to Roma and a couple of other players, but we've brought that in, and Gori being fully fit and is now our captain is huge, because Gori couldn't play you guys because she got injured beforehand, or she was only played a little bit with you guys against you last season with our 1-1 draw, which we'll take. So I'm excited to see what she's going to do first game of the season as captain at Old Trafford. I think she's going to cause you guys some problems, because she's both speedy and physical and will run your midfield ragged.
Seems reasonable. Seems fair. Cerys, there's been a little bit of talk on both in the chat and everywhere else. And again, I'd like to give you your chance to have a little chat about some of the things that have been spoken about previously. Obviously, we know that Fallon Tullis-Joyce is, I would say, nailed on, probably first name on the team sheet, if we're brutally honest, and not just because she's the goalkeeper, but because it's the most obvious position that you're going to go, yep, she's starting. Does that worry you? There was a lot of chat about this again on Monday. Are you worried that we've got just the one goalkeeper? I wasn't too fussed. I'm intrigued to see what you think.
I will say what I said. I think I said it on a show at the end of last season talking about the transfer window, which is that I'm never that worried about backup keepers until our first choice keeper were to get injured. And we were very lucky with Mary Earps that she was, I mean, I don't remember her ever being ill or injured. Like, it was just never a problem that we had. I don't think there's any debate for me that Fallon Tullis-Joyce should be starting. It would be pretty crazy to spend that much money on a goalkeeper and her not be your kind of next in line after Earp's leaving. I think that's settled for me. Whether it worries me that we've not got a backup keeper, slightly, but we do have, you know, we've got Saf Middleton Patel, who obviously is still developing, but performed really well kind of in her loan spells last season. Like, what fans did see of her, I think, was very promising. So I think, as with goalkeepers all the time, it's a situation of if we had gone for another keeper, I think it would have been silly to blow a lot of money on it. It would have needed to be someone who was very happy to sit in as a second choice keeper. And I'm not sure that, for instance, Liza, if I'm saying that right, Liza Kopp from Leicester was the main target. I don't know that that would have been sensible financially. I don't know that it would have been the right move for her either, crucially. I think she's got much more chance of sort of minutes at Leicester than she does at United. So am I worried by the lack of depth? Slightly, but also if no one gets injured, it's fine. So I'm hoping this is something that we just forget we even talked about at the end of the season.
No, I mean, I think I agree entirely there. Amara just asking us, is PTJ that injury prone, or are we just paranoid? I'll be honest with you. That was a filler question right there for you. I needed something to just drop in there in between what I was doing when we were planning. It's how we work when we're doing. I was, what can I ask Cerys that will just fit in nicely? And that was it. So there you go. I don't particularly care. I already said that on Monday. So there we go. I'll tell you what is going on. We've got a bleeding competition going on now. Liam Ferguson's got to be up at 5 o'clock or earlier because he's got an 8 a.m. coach from Birmingham. Where do you live that it's going to take you over 3 hours to get to the coach station? And
I've seen people saying that they're getting a train that, I know the train from Cleethorpes to Manchester goes through Sheffield, but they're getting one earlier than me. And considering I need to get there in time to be in the press box, I'm starting to doubt my decisions slightly. I don't know whether I'm cutting it a little bit fine now, but hopefully Transpennine Express doesn't let me down.
Well, let's hope not. But these guys are genuinely going for it. I really want to know how far away from Birmingham coach station this chap lives, because that's a long period of time. It's almost as long to get to the coach station as it is to then go and get to Manchester. Imara, of course, over the pond. She thinks it's on the telly between 4 and half 4. So obviously she's winning in terms of the earliest bit there. And Alan McPherson, his train to Manchester departs Cleethorpes at 6:24 on Saturday, which is very, very precise. It won't be 6:24. It'll probably be delayed, just so you know. It's trains for you. I wanted to ask you a little question, Allie, about your team, because that's why you're here. West Ham United, Ryan Skinner. Again, Mark has spoken a bit about how your team is evolving. You get more possession now. He named 2 of your players as being particularly dangerous and ones that he would be looking out for, I think. With that, you had Vivian Asayi and Rico Wakey. I hope I'm saying these right. If I'm not, just, I'm trying. But both of those, would you say that they are the main 2 players that Manchester United would need to look out for? And if so, how much of a problem do you think they could cause our brand new Teflon defence?
We got one out of the 2. It's Ueki for our Japanese striker, but you got Asayi right. Well, you just have to look at your trip to Argaff last season. The fact that Viv managed to chip Earps to get that 1-1 draw, the much needed point for West Ham. They are both very dangerous. Again, talk about physicality. Ueki's very dangerous in the fact she looks really slight and doesn't look like she's going to pose you much threat, but is very willing to body check a defender out the way in order to get a goal. So I would definitely say both Ueki and Asayi are very, very dangerous, especially when they play together. We've also, as I've mentioned, got Pavi, the Colombian forward, who, again, it's all about physicality with West Ham. We like to get in there, get stuck in. And if your defenders are not willing to, a bit of shoulder barging, a little bit of, argy-bargy, then they will just get past you because they are that physical. I would say those 2 players are ones you need to worry about, and the aforementioned Gori in midfield, because she will be the playmaker, she will be the puppet master, pulling the strings of all of her teammates, especially now she's officially captain. So yeah, those are the 2 you need to worry about.
Good. There we go. See, Mark's going to know what he's talking about. That's good stuff. That's what we like to hear. Good stuff. It's all going on. Honestly, the boss is getting involved now. I trump you all. I've left to get to Old Trafford today. There you go. So he wins. He loves to win. But then, of course, it's gone down that rabbit hole. Is that so you can get your burger before the game, Connor? He's already had a quick McDonald's, and we know where it's going.
I feel the need to just explain this to Allie in case Allie's not familiar. The issue is that Connor eats his. Actually, no. Do you know what? Yeah, Allie. I'm going to make you do what I had to do on my first show on this channel with 0 context, and I had no idea what was going on. Can you demonstrate for the camera how you would eat a burger if it was in front of you?
Like that, with my hands.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the problem is Connor eats his with a knife and fork. It comes up every show without fail, basically. Just in case you were slightly sort of concerned by what was going on from Imara in the chat asking you about how you eat your burgers. She's not getting personal. It just is sort of a rite of passage for everyone who comes on the show now.
What I love most about that is I didn't even end up needing to ask the question. We've now managed to get to the point where even the people that come on the show are actually asking the questions, and we just sit there and go, there it is. It's got a life of its own, which is quite something indeed, to be honest with you. Cerys, we're going to carry on talking through the Mark Skinner press conference, because let's be honest, that's where we get a lot of our content from when it comes to these previews. But there was something in particular that I found really interesting. It was the very first question as well. They were talking about the preseason and what he'd seen and how they felt. And he said that he felt they were together this season. He's feeling really together, like they are all on the same hymn sheet, pulling in the same direction, which is lovely. And then he mentioned that we had the season where we finished second. He felt like last year was a hangover is the word he used, a hangover from the season before. Whilst making history, I have to point that out. He did say that as well. Is that kind of where you think it was? Is it a hangover? And do you think he's right, therefore, to say it feels more together? Because there is a definite sense of optimism, but that sense of optimism was also there last season. So what's the difference between last season and this season? When last season we nearly won the league, the season before we nearly won the league, and last season we won the FA Cup. Where are you seeing him come from that?
It's really interesting because that was how I said to you before we start the show. This was how I started my morning, was listening back to what Mark Skinner had said in his press conference. And I found it really interesting. So that quote about the hangover really intrigued me. And had I been on the call, I probably would have tried to come back to it. But alas, I was not. What he said was, let me actually find it. Had an incredible season. We only lost 3 games. Sometimes it can put you in a space where it's not what you want to be. And I think we kind of had a hangover last season while still creating history. It's really interesting. It's sort of that idea of, did the pressure of finishing second and the expectation versus then what happened in the window. I think the impact of losing Onabaja and Alessio Russo has been overstated by some people. But I think that drew a lot of headlines, and it was, whoa, you've lost your 2 best players. I think a combination of the pressure of having just recorded our best ever finish and then immediately having gone and had those transfers that people weren't happy about, that created a lot of negativity. But then we still went into the season feeling positive. So I think it's hard. I don't think we can attribute what happened last season entirely to a hangover from the season before. But the difficulty now is looking at it and thinking, what do we now expect, right? Because we came from our best ever finish in the table to our worst ever finish, and now we're seeing where we go from our worst ever finish. And it's very hard to know kind of, will the new signings have the impact that we're all hoping they're going to have? But also at the same time, we don't know what a United side looks like without Katie Zellum, without Mary Earps to an extent, without Lucia Garcia. Obviously was a more recent signing, but we were all extremely used to seeing her there. I think the back line will look different with Janssen coming in. We've got a new captain. So the difference between this season and last, I think, is really hard to quantify, because it's been a very sort of like Jekyll and Hyde transfer window in terms of like incomings and outgoings. And it's really difficult to know what to expect, both in terms of personnel and what we can actually expect from these players, but also in terms of system, because we're apparently going to have this system change. So yeah, it's very, I don't know is the honest answer. And I wish I could be more articulate than that, but it's very difficult to tell at the moment. I think we will probably learn more than we've learned from any other season opener in years from this opener on Saturday. I think this will be probably the most like new look United that we've seen at the start of a season, possibly even since we were reformed. So yeah.
It's very interesting, that's for sure. I mean, another thing that he said in the press conference was that the way that he's gone with the team is to go for players that are young, hungry, and highly talented. So Aoife Mannion must be absolutely delighted at this moment in time, as must Rachel Williams, as we described as young, hungry, and highly talented. I totally agree with the last 2, by the way, for all of the players at Manchester United. But I think everyone gets away with just being called young in football in terms, I'm afraid. But jolly good for them. With that in mind, though, Allie, if you were to pick 3 words, 4 if you were trying to use an adjective to describe one of them as well, what would you use to describe your West Ham team as it stands at the moment? If you were looking for their style, looking at how they played in pre-season, it's a tricky one. You can articulate it and then come up with your 3 words at the end if you want. So you've got a bit of thinking time. Because I appreciate that's a bit of a tricky question to go for. But what would you do? And how has your pre-season gone?
Our pre-season's been up and down. So we've not had the greatest in terms of results. I think our best result was the fact we managed to hold PSG to a 1-0. They beat us only by 1-0. over in Australia, and then we got battered by Leicester and Arsenal in closed doors. I think there is a lot of playing around because we have lost some key pieces in our defence. Obviously, like I said, Howard's gone to Roma, and she was very key for us, and some other bits and bats. Physical is always going to be a word I use for West Ham because we just are. It's just, you're not a proper West Ham player unless you're willing to get in there and risk a yellow card, to be honest. And that goes for the men and women. You have to be a very physical team. I'd say we're probably, my words are probably physical, tenacious, and hopeful, because it can't go worse than last season.
I mean, it can, but let's hope it doesn't. There's one more spot, but fingers crossed, Allie. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Just trying to be real. It could be worse for us as well, to be fair. So let's kind of see where we go. I'm going to throw another question at you, Cerys, and to be honest with you, you're probably going to hate me by the end of this show with the types of questions I've been asking you. But I'm just intrigued and see it as a positive that I think that highly of you, that you're going to answer these questions without any problem whatsoever. But again, in the press conference, he says that they started their evolution, and he's talking a lot about tactical. And I found it really interesting because one of the criticisms that gets pointed towards Mark Skinner is that he doesn't seem to have this tactical awareness. It was not given to him as one of the positives of his game. It was Martin Ho, we always thinking that maybe it was the one that was getting the tactics across better. He spoke specifically, like I say, about doing that, adapting the shape. He wants to control the transition. He talks about us being a great pressing side, which, to be fair, we have been. He says we've been the top at that for the last couple of seasons. But he wants us to be more adaptable in our setup. And what I found interesting, he said 8 different tactical shapes is what they've used over the course of the last few years. And he wants them to know when and why to use them without the coaches needing to intervene. And I found this interesting because, again, from the sidelines, a lot of people looking in, you could see there seemed to be a bit of a disconnect between what the coaches were asking and what was happening on the pitch, perhaps some confusion getting the message across, which, you know, to be fair, if you're trying to change tactics, could very much so be something that happens. Do you see that? I mean, obviously it's a positive, but is that something that you think we would be able to do? Do you think in the short amount of time that we've had since the end of last season, can you see those tactical changes happening? And are you seeing that more within the personnel that have been brought in? Because again, on Monday, I threw out there a couple of different shapes. There was a superb reply to our tweet about tonight's show, which had about 7 or 8 different formations that could be played and numerous different players that could be played in those positions. So with that in mind, that's going to be quite positive that we're now looking down this avenue of being a bit more changeable and not just being so rigid with our formation. And therefore, you would imagine there'd be a bit more rotation of players, which I know some people have been calling for as well.
Yeah, so I think it was a key thing that a lot of people picked up on last season. Because obviously in our kind of best season 2 years ago, when we finished second, we were super consistent. We didn't rotate much, but we were winning. Whereas last season, the results didn't bring the consistency, but there was still the consistency in personnel, which is when it starts to look less like consistency and more like rigidity, I think. So I'm pleased to see this sort of like, I'm pleased to see him talking, Skinner, about adaptability, both within games, but also I'm hoping that extends to sort of the squad. And we've got so many talented players. I mean, he was saying this morning, apart from Evie Rabjon, everyone is fit. So some players will not even probably be in the matchday squad, which is something that I think it comes with the territory of professional football sometimes. But hopefully we do see that like rotation of everyone actually getting in. I find it really interesting because what Skinner said in this press conference this morning, which I've got in front of me at the moment, everything actually sounds very positive. It sounds very attacking. It sounds very, I think, intense. It's intensity heavy. I think the workload demand on individual players is going to be very high in terms of 1v1s. He talked about going player for player a lot about physicality. I think to me that speaks to sort of individual battles towards being able to make those interceptions in the transition periods, which is really interesting. But then also that relies on everyone doing their job. So something where I think we've been good is in our pressing structure. So it comes down to individual battles, but then also everyone being on the same page at once in terms of how we then turn the kind of individual battles into progress forward as a team. Because it's one thing winning the ball back, but if you then have no one to pass it to, then it's pointless and it's wasted effort. So I've gone kind of off on a tangent, but I think I like the sound of what was said this morning. It sounds like exciting football. However, it's going to be difficult if it doesn't work. And it's going to be frustrating, I think, for players if it doesn't work, if there are crossed wires, if we find people are sort of not moving in the team shape in the way that, you know, he's talking about wanting players to have these instincts as to when they need to be moving position. If we have that, then great. But if we don't, we could see that sort of frustration and that kind of, you know, there was the famous kind of moment, I think, at Stamford Bridge last season where we saw Zellum and Skinner arguing on the sidelines. That's the sort of thing we really don't want to see. And that's where what he said about the togetherness and also the new leadership of our new captain as well, and those experienced voices like Janssen, that's where that comes in. So I like the sound of it, but I think it relies very heavily on communication and on those kind of leaders in the team, like Tooney being vice captain, Mayer being captain now, Janssen being a very experienced player, stepping up and taking that responsibility of making sure everyone's on the same page. Otherwise, it could end up kind of chaotic.
Very good. See, you weren't sure how to articulate, but you did it brilliantly. I knew that you would. Well done, you. This was put on earlier on. No, it doesn't ever depend on the burger. You always use your hands and you accept the consequences. If you don't want mess down your front, don't get a messy burger, would be my argument on that one. I've had this question thrown at me. It's not often I get asked a question when I'm hosting, so I'm going to take this moment to step out of the box and shine. Question for you. Who will be left out of the matchday squad? Presumably me. I won't be playing, that's for sure. And Simpson, but who else? I would imagine Alyssa Ahern, if we're not already counting the fact that Evie Rabjohn won't be.
Alyssa Ahern's on loan, so she's definitely not going to be in the matchday squad.
Not happening, is it? So I don't know is the honest answer. There's so many players, though. If you were looking at the ones that we spoke about on Monday, somebody's going to be disappointed potentially. But the good thing is that can be rotated and give us the opportunity to see how they're getting on. So I don't know. Who do you think, more importantly? Because the whole point of All for United is to hear the fans' voices. So you tell me, who would you leave out? Channel your inner Mark Skinner and your inner Skinner, and let us know. Sometimes I just find them and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So there we go. With that in mind, Allie, what's your squad going to look like? Are there any players that you're thinking might miss out? What would you pick? You can be a Skinner. Channel your inner Skinner as well. It works for both of you. What would you see your 11 as being? If you were getting there, you're looking on your phone, there's me 11. Who is it? Fantasy football time.
So I think I'm going to disappoint a lot of fans because it got asked earlier, I saw, but Mewis is going to be on the bench. I'm just going to tell you that now. She's been injured for a long time and she's just coming back to full fitness. So I'm sorry, Mewis fans, but she may play a couple of minutes, but she is not starting. I really want to see our Swede. We signed her in the January window, Marika Berglund. She came over from Häcken, and she is, again, a fierce presence. And her and Minnie in the middle are going to be something else. I think new signing Pavi's got to start. I think our back line is going to be Denton Tiziak, former United player Kirsty Smith, who has been nothing but phenomenal for us, and then our new signing, our Chilean Sayers. That's going to be the back line I think we're going to see, and then up front you've got Ueki and Asai. Those are the names I want to see. Those are the names I want to see.
There we go. It's your go now, Keris. Good luck to you. But you can pick your dream Manchester United 11, obviously out of the players that we've got. You can't go in players that aren't there.
Oh man alive. Okay. I want to probably see God, who do I want to see? This is really difficult. I really want to see Gabby George starting at left back. I think centre back is something that's very difficult for me because I think obviously Maya will be starting as captain and she walks into the lineup anyway. I hate excluding Millie Turner from any lineup because she is like my personal hero. But I think it will be interesting to see this season. Do we have kind of a shift and have like 3 centre backs and 2 wing backs? I doubt that, which probably means that she's going to be competing for game time with Janssen. I would like to see Janssen start because I'm very excited to see her play. So I think for me, it would be back 4 of, what did I even say? George Janssen usually plays on the left side, Maya, and then Riviere. The holding midfield, I would probably start with Hayley Ladd in there. And then I would have Grace Clinton in the 8, Tooney in the 10. I would have Mallard starting on the left. I would have Turland starting up top. And then who would I have on the right? If you can't tell, I literally haven't thought about this. It's been a really busy day, so I'm just making this up. Who even are our right wingers? I'm lost. Jace? I literally can't even remember. Paris is gone. Yeah. I literally don't even know. Like, it's been a really long day.
Yeah. Same problem we had, obviously, as Bizet, sorry. We brought her at the end. And of course, Rachel Williams, who can play anywhere. So stick on the right wing if you want.
I think seeing Jason Bizet, I think they bring slightly different kind of things. So I'm interested to see them sort of like rotate. I think there's very much like a role for both of them without one of them being the starting player and one of them being the player who gets 10, 15 minutes a game. I think there's definitely a role for both of them in this team.
Interestingly, no space for Leah Gorton in your side then?
I think Leah's probably could do with another. I think from what I've seen, it looks like she's probably still going to take this game out. I could be wrong. But I'm so excited to see Mallard get into more of sort of like a regular role in the team. I think with Elizabeth Turland having arrived, that role for Mallard is very likely to be on the left. I think she struggles to displace Turland. I'm very excited for that also. But yeah, Leah Galton, I love. I think she's been a brilliant servant to the club and is still an excellent player. But I think she is probably, there's no need to rush her onto the pitch when we've got so many quality wingers. If I would love to see her come on, but I think that I would like to see Mallard start.
It's fair. I went through my 2 teams on the Monday, as I said, and that was exactly why I considered changing the formation, because for me, you got the opportunity to have Mallard and Turland together for that one. I wasn't sure that Bizet would necessarily push out Jays immediately, and the same with Galton and Mallard. Wasn't sure. I thought I preferred Mallard maybe a little bit more centrally. So it's difficult. Like I say, she's not going to push out Turland, I wouldn't have thought.
I think our front three's really, really... Sorry to interrupt you, Barry. That's the first time I've done that tonight. I usually do.
You interrupt me whenever you like.
I interrupt Connor like 6 times a show, so take it as a compliment. Sorry, Connor. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, like the selection battles. I think we have far fewer names who are a certainty on the team sheet. Really, Maya Letitia, I think our fullbacks, even I think Riviere will be pretty nailed on. But George has got competition from Anna Sandberg. There's competition at centre back now. There's some competition in the holding midfield. I think Tooney and Clinton almost certainly for me will start. But across the front 3, we've got so much. Calling 2 players to a position depth feels a bit like over-egging it. But we've got those options now where every player's pretty much got to compete for their spot, which I think is really exciting, both from a squad depth point of view and just pushing that standards. They push each other a little bit more.
Yeah, again, totally agree. Allie, I was going to ask you with regards to results. It's a very interesting thing when it comes to Manchester United against West Ham, because when we go to your gaff, it's not the most pleasurable of experiences.
Depends who you ask. I think it's great.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, for me, it's never been the greatest. 1-1 draw, obviously, last season.
Yep.
We'll never forget that 1-2 seasons ago where it looked like we were going to nick the 1-0 win. And then obviously Katie Zellum was playing in defence for that one, and that the corner comes in, it's headed in, and we're all just devastated. It seems to be when we're at your gaff, it's a tricky old game. But you'll forgive me for using the words that I'm about to use. When we have you at home, we batter you. Generally seems to be the general gist of it. So with that in mind, it's a double-edged question, this one. The first part of it is, why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that you're struggling so much when we're at home? And how can you bring that, your home form, into this fixture? And which one do you think is going to turn up? Is it going to be that difficult West Ham side to break down that always has a little goal in there that they can get in there to equalise it and make it difficult for you? Or are you basically just going to lie down and let us roll all over you so that we can get 3 points? Which way do you think you're going to go?
Firstly, I have to say, when you're talking about Hayley Ladd is one of your most underutilized players. And as an outsider, it was the most frustrating thing for me last season. So part of me is glad Zellum has moved on, because it's going to allow Ladd to get the time and glory that she needs, because the fact she wasn't used as much last season was really frustrating as an outsider. In terms of what West Ham is going to turn up, I think because we've got you first game of the season, there is going to be a lot of pressure for us to turn up, because if we start like we did last season, it's going to not be a pretty thing. I don't know what it is. Again, I think it's you guys do make it a fortress, and players say it's so hard to play against you guys at home because you're always chanting, always singing, you're loud, you are a very dominating presence, which, has its downsides. I hope it's the one that's the home form, because I will repeat, one of the greatest days of my life is beating you guys 3-2 at home on a very cold day at our home stadium, where it was, back and forth. And I would love to see that fight again. I really would. So I don't think we're going to roll over. It's hard. It really is hard, because I am excited by the team we've got. I'm excited by the players we've signed. But there is something about when we turn up at one of your gaffs that we just end up, like you say, rolling over and giving you the 3 points.
I've got to be honest, I just appreciate having somebody else on the show who calls it a gaff. We don't usually get that. It's very northern based up here. They call it all manner of different things.
I was going to say, that accent is not Mancunian. How are you a Man United fan?
Well, I mean, that's a question that could be asked, isn't it? I've supported them since 1987. So I feel that makes me qualified, even if not as a local. I've been repatriated in that respect.
But I was
I've
like,
always
that's not a Manc accent. I was like,
absolutely not. It's a family trait. That's what we do. It's who we've supported for years and years. But no, it's not even close to one. Just north, Stevenage. That's where I am. That's as far north as I'll go. So not a million miles away from Dagenham, as you can tell. Cerys, same thing for you, really. But I want to slightly tip the question insofar as how important do you think it is that Manchester United come away from this game with the 3 points? Because there's pressure. There's going to be pressure. People weren't sure about Mark Skinner last season towards the end. There's still lots that want to keep him in. Still some that think giving him the extension wasn't the greatest of ideas. How important is that 3 points going to be if we can get them? If we walk away with a draw or a loss, is that going to just reopen some old wounds? Or do you think that actually we could come away from from Saturday with a draw and still not feel too bad about it? Where do you sort of stand? How important would you rank it?
I think it depends a lot on kind of the manner of the game. But I would say 3 points are crucial. Like if it's a case of literally, I don't know. Actually, no. To me, there's not really a situation where a draw is excusable, because this is something that always really winds me up. It's just a pet peeve of mine when people say, "Oh, we we drew 1-1 because we conceded last minute, but we deserved to win. I'm like, well, no, if you conceded a last minute equaliser, that's because you either didn't give yourself enough of a cushion by scoring another goal, or you didn't defend properly and conceded the equaliser. It can be unlucky, but it's still deserved, is what I think. So for me, 3 points is pretty crucial. I know it's still a new team and it's still developing, but I do think, again, no disrespect to West Ham, like with the quality of players that we've signed over the summer, we should be able to put goals past a new keeper, a defence that doesn't have some of your kind of stalwart players in it anymore. I think that should be something that is very achievable for us, and we should start as we mean to go on. You know, Mark's going to talk today about every team takes 6 or 7 games to get into their rhythm. That was one thing that he said that I didn't agree with. Look at, we're disadvantaged in the sense of, if you look at Arsenal and City, they've already had a little bit of game time in the Champions League. We haven't had that, but that's on us. It will obviously be a little bit of rust going into the start of a season, as it always is, but we still shouldn't be dropping points on the opening day against West Ham. So, yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, Connor's just brought up here, Allie, this one, especially after the last game at Old Trafford. Does that Chelsea result give you any form of positivity going into the game? Because, it wasn't the greatest of moments, and who knows, maybe that's got a little bit to do with the take up on tickets as well. I don't know. I'm spitballing there, but you never know. People have some strange thoughts. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you know what? It does prove that any team is beatable on any day. The Chelsea result for sure. It does. I am not going to lie. I was very surprised that we were selected as an Old Trafford game. I'm not going to lie, because we're not known for bringing an away support. I'm very convinced that the away end is going to be one man and his dog from the West Ham side. There will be the ultras that travel to every game, and that will be it. So I was very surprised that we were picked as an Old Trafford game, to be honest. But yeah, it always gives me hope. Look, there's only hope until the ref blows the whistle and you guys have nailed us 6-0, to be honest. So, I'm always hopeful until I'm not.
Which, again, seems perfectly normal. Mara saying it's critical for us to get 3 points, and not just get 3 points, but do it comfortably. So there we go. I suppose really I'm going to ask you, and I'll start with you on this one, Allie, as well. What will make a good season for West Ham this season?
Not a relegation battle, please. My heart cannot take it. I've done too many of them. I end up questioning my life decisions when we're in that. I don't take losing very well. A good season is, I want us to feel like we're trying. That was the problem I had last season, was for the first half of the season, it felt very lackluster, very sort of players weren't really trying, and that's how we ended up in the situation we did. And it wasn't until the turnaround result of beating Arsenal that I started seeing that fight and everything else. So a good season for West Ham is I would love to see us do the best position we have finishing. So I'd like us to get 6th, because we've got 7th or higher. So 6th or higher would be great. And I would like to see us put in some great performances and actually have some players that fight for the badge, because that's the most important thing as a West Ham fan, is to have players that are fighting for the badge. That's what we like.
I think what's nice about that is that it's perfectly achievable. So you would like to think that is something that West Ham could do. Cerys, I think it's a slightly trickier question for us. That, there's been so many ups and downs and different things. We've finished 2nd in the league. We've won an FA Cup. We've made Conti Cup semi-finals. At various points, those things have been either brilliant or not enough, depending on people's viewpoint. What is a successful season for Manchester United this season for you?
For me, I think we need to be looking at getting back in the top 3. It's a really difficult challenge. I'm not trying to minimize it at all. I think City, Arsenal and Chelsea have had that stranglehold on those places for so long. The fact that we managed to break it in the first place was a huge achievement, and it was partly, you know, slip-ups on other teams' parts. Again, it comes back to what I was saying before about games, right? It can be deserved and still a little bit lucky. So I think there's an element of that. But for me, getting back into that top 3 will be the main marker of success. I want to see us challenging for major trophies, as we know we can. On obviously Conti Cup last season was, again, I keep doing this undeserved, unlucky thing. The way we went out was really unlucky, but again, it's our fault we didn't get enough points to save us from what happened to us. Do I think it was fair what happened? No, but it was still really difficult to kind of, it wasn't something where you could look at it and go, yes, we have absolutely no fault here, because if we'd won enough games, then it wouldn't have been a problem. So I think a lot of it just comes back to that. This season for me is about competing for major trophies, because we've proven that we can. We finally got our first one, and showing that consistency to go back to competing with the top 3 sides again. Because last season, before last, we had these amazing games where we would, you know, really take the contest to, you know, I go back to the away at the Emirates was incredible. You know, some of the derby performances, the derby at the end of that season was amazing. Last season, we finally beat Chelsea. You know, we do have this progress. Yeah, and Amara's got a point as well. Like, it's good for the league for us to be in there, for us to be challenging. So for me, the major thing I want to see as a United fan, but also as just a fan of women's football in the WSL and a reporter of it, you want to see that top 3 being shaken up. So yeah, for me, it's top 3 is the major thing.
No, absolutely. I think that's reasonably fair. Although what I will say, Cerys, is no one's ever going to convince me that anything that happened there in that Conti Cup was right, fair, proper. We did get enough points. It's just somebody else made a mistake. But
I won't go into it. I was going to like come back at you, and then I was like, no, that's not what this show is about. We all need to.
What I'll absolutely add 100% is I'm glad in a way, because, you know, the butterfly effect. So just that one little change, making it through in the Conti Cup, could well have been the thing that stopped us winning the FA Cup. Who knows? Something might have gone wrong. So I'm certainly not going to change last season, because that moment and that day is going to live with me until my dying day. And speaking of dying days, it's almost the end of this show. But the show behave, Cerys. It's all good. Don't worry.
When you start a sentence, sometimes I'm just like, I just couldn't tell you what's happening.
I told you. Who could tell what's going to go wrong when Barry's in charge of the show? I just keep telling you. But what I do need to say is this, because a lot of you have taken part in over the last 2 years in the All United Prediction League, and fair play to the 2 or 3 of you that sent through your predictions without us even telling you it was on All United. And the reason we didn't is because it's not. We finally moved it. It's now going to be on All for Women's Football. They are going to be running the Prediction League. So if you do want to take part, feel free. Same rules, all of that sort of jazz. Get yourself over to All for Women's Football. DM that account. They will have the Predictions League this year. Yes, Cerys?
But we do have a fantasy football league.
So, tell them more about that, because I've paid no attention.
Gosh, I can't remember it. I know Connor posted like the link or the code to join or something. I'm terrible at fantasy football, but join it every year without delay. And so far in this league, I think it might literally just be me and Connor. I don't even know. But yeah, join our fantasy WSL league because it will be fun. There you go. The code is all for United WFC.
Very difficult one. Very difficult to remember that one. So make sure you've written it down on a bit of paper. I'll leave it there for you, just in case you're not sure, for everybody. But yes, do get yourself in on to that. And like I say, get yourself over to All for Woe if you want the Predictions League. There's lots of fun to be had. Cerys, as ever, absolute pleasure to have you here on the show. Brilliant to see you. Where can people find more of your information? Well, not your information, your stuff that you're doing. Where can they find you? What have you been doing lately? Where can people see your work?
I will be, my Twitter's there, and pretty much everything goes on there. I will be very happy to say I'll be reporting on the game on Saturday from the press box at Old Trafford, which is a very surreal thing for me to be saying, but that will be on fromthespot.co.uk. I'll retweet it afterwards as well. Yeah, and hopefully my women's football podcast, She's Out of Your League, should be hopefully starting back up again for season 2 very soon. So yeah, follow my Twitter and you will know all of what is going on if you are interested in reading and listening to me even more.
Brilliant. And yes, you should. It's definitely worth a follow. I felt like I'd just done that, but I'm not convinced. Maybe I didn't. I've lost the plot, TJ. I'm hoping that you just missed that bit. Maybe something went a bit wrong and it skipped. But if not, yes, do. It's on All for Women's Football. Allie, as I said, you do a bit of writing for Since 71. Is there anything that you want to shout out? Anything that you've been doing that people could go and watch?
Yeah, so the big thing is I am the co-host for the Women's Soccer Show. I didn't name it. I do it with an American. So if you go to @the_WOSO, that's WOSO show, you will be able to see our tweets, and we go live every Wednesday. So there'll be a new episode wherever you get your podcast, and we cover everything from grassroots all the way up to WSL, NWSL, all of Europe. So yeah, anything women's football related, check us out on the WOSO show.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Ali, what do you think the score's going to be on Saturday?
I'm hedging my bets. I'm going to say 2-2. 2-2.
Cerys, what are you thinking?
I am going to say 3-1.
3-1, just a 3. It's always up to me to do it in the end, isn't it? We've got TJ here with 3-0. Marin's going 4-1. Imara's gone 2-2 as well. Not sure about that. Michael Birch gone 2-0. Simon Horan's gone 3-0 win. I'm presuming all these is Manchester United. Alan's gone 4-0. But I'm going to say, I think it's going to be 6-0. 6-0. And on starts the Manchester United title winning train. You've heard it here first. 6-0. If it's 6-0, I'm expecting people to come in and apologise, especially you there, Ali, with a little shake of the head. So I expect to see you there in the tweet. But that's what I'm going for. 6-0. I'm feeling positive. You should be feeling positive too, whoever you support, because by God, football is back. And I'll tell you something, I absolutely cannot wait. It's been a pleasure. We'll be back for the review show on Monday as ever. Keep it all for United WFC. Thanks, everyone. Take care.